Welcome to Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a really crucial deep dive. We're looking into a significant and, frankly, rapidly unfolding shift within the U.S. labor market. Our focus, it's the profound impact these changes are having, specifically on foreign-born workers. We've gathered some truly compelling data, some analysis, and it really paints a picture of substantial shifts. And these have wide-reaching ripple effects, across the economy and communities nationwide. So if you're looking to understand the forces shaping today's employment landscape, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Precisely. And we're going to systematically unpack some key findings in recent analysis. It's all drawing on government data.
All right.
And what it reveals is a distinct, almost dramatic reversal of trends we've actually observed for well over a decade now. This isn't just an economic blip, right? It's a topic that delves deep into the stability of our economy, the intricate world of immigration policy, and of course, the daily lives of millions of people. Our aim today is to give you a clear, comprehensive, and hopefully a truly insightful understanding of exactly what's happening and, importantly, why it matters.
Okay, let's dive right into the scale then. The scale of this shift, because the numbers themselves are, well, quite astonishing. When we look at the government data, particularly as analyzed by the National Foundation for American Policy, NFAP, the headline figure is stark. Over 1.1 million foreign-born workers have seen their jobs disappear since January 2025.
1.1 million.
Yeah. And that's not a gradual erosion. It feels like a very rapid, significant decline, all within, less than a year?
It's incredibly fast. And to put an even finer point on that, the peak job loss actually hit an even higher figure. We're talking approximately 1.5 million workers impacted between March and mid-2025.
Wow.
Yeah. What's truly striking about that period is the sheer velocity of the downturn. It wasn't some slow, creeping adjustment. It was pronounced, fast, and for many, I imagine, an incredibly disruptive contraction in job opportunities.
1.5 million. That's a truly staggering number of individuals, of families, households directly affected. But what makes this even more critical to grasp, I think, is understanding it against the historical backdrop.
Exactly.
Because when you do that, it just underscores how much of an unprecedented reversal this really is.
Absolutely. That historical context is crucial. You have to look back for an entire decade, right? Between 2014 and 2024, the foreign-born labor force wasn't just growing. It was growing consistently and significantly.
Right, steadily climbing.
We saw an average increase of around 652,000 foreign-born workers joining the workforce every single year during that period.
650,000 a year?
Yeah, think about that. 500,000 to almost 750,000 new workers annually contributing. So for that robust decade-long expansion to suddenly reverse so dramatically, losing over 1 million workers in under a year, it just signals a profound and really abrupt departure from the established pattern.
Yeah.
This isn't just a typical cyclical dip we might expect. It feels like a fundamental shift in the trajectory of a vital part of our workforce.
And it's not just about the absolute number of jobs lost, is it? We also need to look at how this impacts the broader indicators, like unemployment rates. For foreign-born workers, the jobless rate saw a noticeable jump. Climbed from 3.6% in 2023 up to 4.2% in 2024. That's quite a leap.
It is.
How does that compare to native-born workers during that same time?
Well, native-born unemployment also rose, which, itself signals a softening labor market overall. It moved from 3.6% to 4.0% over that same period.
Okay, so both up, but a bigger jump for foreign-born workers.
Exactly. So while both groups saw more joblessness, the foreign-born segment experienced a slightly more pronounced rise. It suggests perhaps a greater vulnerability or maybe a bigger impact from whatever factors are driving this. What's truly fascinating here and what you really need to be aware of isn't just these numbers in isolation. It's what this sudden significant downturn means when you contrast it so sharply with those years of consistent, often robust growth.
Right.
It signals a fundamental shift. We're moving from expansion to contraction in this key segment, and that could have, lasting implications for the overall health of the economy.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this then. Numbers like that, they don't just happen, right? Something's driving such a rapid, dramatic decline. So what's really contributing to these job losses, the NFAP analysis mentioned some specific drivers, didn't it?
It did. Yeah, the analysis points to 3 main contributing factors that seem to be working together here. The first one, and maybe the most overarching, is a set of stricter immigration measures. This covers a range of new policies, new implementations that are basically restricting the traditional legal immigration pathways. So, for example, blocking or significantly cutting back programs like Temporary Protected Status, TPS.
Right, TPS.
Which normally helps people from countries facing conflict or disaster. It also includes limiting new refugee admissions, reducing or even ending humanitarian parole programs. These are all ways people enter or stay legally for specific reasons. So essentially, these policies are tightening the flow of new workers in and also making it harder for some already here to maintain their lawful status.
So hitting it from both ends, essentially. Harder to come in legally to work and harder for some already here to stay legal.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, what about the second factor?
The second factor is the termination of authorized status for some workers. This refers to specific situations where foreign workers who, previously had a lawful status to live and work here, they're now being systematically removed from the legal workforce.
So this affects people already established.
Exactly, not just new arrivals. It can be due to various things: policy changes, revoking old authorizations, programs expiring without renewal, maybe stricter interpretations of existing rules. The bottom line is a direct reduction in the number of foreign-born individuals legally allowed to work. And that often forces them to leave the country or fall out of status.
That sounds incredibly disruptive, devastating, really, for those individuals and their families to suddenly lose your ability to work legally.
This would be a huge shock.
Yeah.
And the third factor?
The third factor focuses on layoffs happening specifically within visa-specific categories. The H-1B visa is a prime example here.
The skilled worker visa.
Right. Workers on these non-immigrant visas face a particular acute vulnerability. Unlike a citizen or a green card holder, if an H-1B holder, say, loses their job, it often means they have to leave the country.
Oh, wow.
They might get a short grace period. Usually it's 60 days to find a new employer willing to sponsor them for a new H-1B or maybe change to a different status.
60 days isn't long. Not at all. If they can't find that new sponsorship or switch status within that very tight window, they can quickly fall out of status and face removal. So job loss isn't just about money, it's about the immediate threat of having to leave the country entirely.
So putting it all together.
Yeah, you can see it's a powerful mix, right? Policy changes, operational impacts like status terminations, and these inherent visa vulnerabilities, they're all fundamentally reshaping the landscape for these workers.
That's a really clear way to put it. It makes it obvious these aren't just random fluctuations. It's systemic change driven by multiple connected forces. Which brings us to the broader implications, because, beyond the individual worker, what does this all mean for the wider economy, for communities across the U.S.? This is where it gets really interesting for everyone, I think.
Well, the implications are, as you say, pretty far-reaching, significant. Firstly, this big drop in foreign-born employment is definitely adding to other signs of what economists are calling labor market softness.
Right, a cooling job market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're seeing lower job creation numbers overall, but it seems particularly pronounced in areas that have historically relied heavily on immigrant labor.
Like
hospitality, construction, certain service industries, even parts of tech. This cooling trend could potentially further erode overall demand for labor, creating a kind of ripple effect through the whole job market. It could even impact native-born workers eventually.
So it's not isolated. It's potentially both a symptom and maybe even a driver of a larger economic trend. What are some of the more maybe tangible economic risks if this continues?
Yeah, there are definite risks. Foreign-born workers are just vital to how many industries function. Think about essential services, high-tech innovation, agriculture putting food on our tables, hospitality.
It's absolutely key in many sectors.
Totally. So a rapid, sustained reduction in their numbers, like we're seeing now, could easily make existing labor shortages even worse in some key areas. And when businesses can't find workers, what happens? Their costs go up. They might have to offer higher wages, more incentives to attract the limited talent pool.
Which gets passed on to consumers.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
It contributes to inflation. And ultimately, if these shortages become widespread, persistent, they can definitely slow overall economic growth. They limit productivity, limit expansion. Think about supply chains without enough drivers or warehouse workers or local businesses struggling to stay staffed. These are palpable risks, not just theory.
And beyond the economic numbers, which are concerning enough, there's that human element, isn't there? The social implications that sometimes get lost in the statistics.
Absolutely. You can't overstate that. Job losses on this scale create these wide-ranging, often painful ripples. They hit thousands of families, both here in the U.S., facing immediate financial insecurity, and also families abroad who rely on remittances that money sent home.
Right, those remittances are lifelines for many economies.
Huge lifeline. And then you have local economies, especially those really dependent on immigrant labor for their vitality. They can see a real downturn, less spending, business closures. and the communities themselves. They often thrive on the diversity, the hard work these individuals bring. They can experience social strain, disruption, maybe a loss of vibrancy. It's all interconnected. It's
Yeah.
a complex web of consequences stretching way beyond just the workplace.
So you can really see it's not just abstract stats or distant policy debates. It's about real impacts on supply chains, prices we pay, and the very fabric, the cohesion of our communities. It really highlights how linked everything is, which raises that big question looking forward. What should we really be watching for as this complex situation unfolds, in the coming months, maybe years?
That is the critical question, isn't it? And there are several key areas we should all be monitoring closely to see how this evolves. First, we need to watch the pace of decline. Will this decrease in the foreign-born labor force speed up even more? Or will it stabilize at some point? The analysis suggests it might continue through late 2025, maybe into 2026. So understanding its trajectory deepening or leveling off is really important for planning and policy.
So, not something likely to just stop tomorrow. And what about the industries most affected? How might they respond?
Good question. Industries struggling to find workers because of this, they'll have to adapt somehow. And their choices will have consequences. We might see them offering higher wages, trying to attract who's available. Good for workers, maybe, but could raise costs. Another response is more automation, investing in tech to replace manual labor. Efficient, perhaps, but changes the job landscape.
Yeah, different skills needed.
Exactly. Offshoring is another possibility, moving operations where labor is more available or cheaper. That impacts domestic jobs, obviously.
Right.
And finally, maybe broader changes in supply chains as companies just try to navigate this new reality. Each adaptation has its own ripple effects: economic, social, competitive.
And what about policy? Since policy was a big driver, will we see any shifts or reactions there?
That's another major thing to watch.
Yeah.
We could certainly see legislative pushback against current immigration policies, maybe from different political groups or advocates, as these impacts become clear. There might also be legal challenges trying to change how policies are implemented, and potentially renewed calls for new immigration reform efforts to maybe buffer affected workers and address these emerging labor needs.
So, potential for change there too.
Definitely. And finally, we just need to keep monitoring the overall unemployment impacts, not just for foreign-born workers, but for native-born workers too, as the whole labor market adjusts. Like I said, it's not static, it's dynamic, a puzzle with many moving pieces. How it evolves will tell us a lot about our economy and our society. So just to quickly summarize our discussion today, we've really explored how over 1 million foreign-born workers have faced job losses since early 2025. It's a sharp, unprecedented reversal from over a decade of steady growth. This decline seems directly linked to a mix of stricter immigration measures, policy changes affecting worker statuses, and specific layoffs in visa categories like H-1B. The implications: they're broad. They touch on overall labor market softness, create potential economic risks like labor shortages and higher costs, and have significant social and human consequences for families and communities. Understanding all this really means we need careful, ongoing observation of what happens next and how policies might respond.
That's a truly powerful and comprehensive summary. It connects everything from individual lives right up to these larger economic forces. Really important stuff. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. All the best, and we will meet again with another important matter again.